All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting episode of Designing the New Dragons. Join us as we may be creating your new favorite character. So, today, we've built two Faubla Ultima characters thus far. My last video, I uploaded the wrong video and just re-uploaded one of my D&D sessions that was already online, and then I had to fix that. So hopefully by now you guys have actually seen that nonsense of a character. And so to avoid that, and due to the fact that I like to put these RPGs through their paces, today we are not going to follow the normal order of creating your class. I like the way that they do this. I actually have been having a lot of fun starting with identity, theme, and origin for my character. And it has created some very unique, very interesting characters I wouldn't have created otherwise. Never would have put a lot of those combinations together. A defensive gunslinger, not what I was thinking about. So that being said, I want to see what kind of a weird character we can make, and then kind of put it into the system. So today we're going to start off by choosing the classes and the skills, and then work our way backwards through getting the equipment for it, choosing the attributes and all those, and then the last thing we're going to do is identity, theme, and origin. So we're going to do this kind of backwards, not 100% backwards, because I think if we did everything 100% backwards, we would start with equipment and then work our way backwards, and I don't think that would be much fun. So yeah, let's start this off by going zoop. Here we go. So, the first choice. Classes. So, I've mentioned before, I think I've listed the classes off before a few different times, but these are the official classes that are in the core rulebook. They are Arcanist, Chimerist, Darkblade, Elementalist, Entropist, Fury, Guardian, Lore Master, Orator, Rogue, Sharpshooter, Spiritist, Tinkerer, Wayfarer, and Weapon Master. And I'm thinking, because I've done this in a couple different systems, and I do it in action RPGs actually quite a bit. Like the first time I ever beat Diablo 2. And I did it in the remastered version. I have both versions. The remastered is just so much easier to get to run on my computer. So I got the Diablo remaster, whatever it's called. And I wanted to create a throwing-based characters, because they have throwing weapons in Diablo 2. They have not brought back throwing weapons since Diablo 2. And I kind of understand, but it annoys the hell out of me, because I like characters that like throw knives, or my particular favorite character to create is I create characters that throw cards, because Gambit was a huge part of my childhood. So there is a thrown category for weapons in Faubla Ultima, which kind of makes sense because in Final Fantasy, there's actually been a couple different characters that have used thrown weapons. Like if you think Final Fantasy VII, Yuffie uses a giant shuriken. If you think something like Final Fantasy VI, Setzer actually uses a deck of cards as his weapons. If you go with something like Final Fantasy Type 0, I think it's Ace, actually uses cards, and you give him different decks that let him do different things with his cards. And he's actually my favorite character from Final Fantasy Type 0. He's such a cool character. That is a dark game, by the way. That is a massively dark game. But yeah, so having characters that can throw stuff. I mean, ninjas, their kind of class ability is throw. So it makes sense they would have it. I want to create a character that is focused on throwing weapons. And I don't want to make a character that's similar to the gunslinger we made last time, because the easy route to go is you just go to sharpshooter, because sharpshooters specialize in ranged weapons. And so I could just go with sharpshooter. The nice thing about thrown weapons is they're not martial weapons, so any class can use the thrown weapons. And they use dexterity and insight, or depending on which ones you use. There are two different thrown categories. They're improvised thrown weapons, which is not something you would ever like buy. And those use dexterity and might. Or shuriken is the only other thing listed in the basic weapons that is a thrown weapon that uses dexterity and insight. So we are probably going to be having a similar breakdown as far as the as far as like the attributes are done. I might not go quite as specialized with this one, but that being said, I want to see what other kind of interesting things we can do with this. So one way we can go with rogue, which can be a lot of fun, because there's lots of cool stuff that they can do. Yeah, so I mean that's one way. I might want to add in some. Well, here's a class I really haven't done a whole lot with in any of my builds, even the ones I do just for fun when I'm not recording, is the lore master. They are very much, they're a lore-based character. This is kind of interesting. So, knowledge is power. When you perform an accuracy check, you replace one of the attribute dice with insight. So, if we went with this, because the shuriken already uses insight for one of them, we could replace the other one, dexterity, and turn that into a to turn that into a insight, and that, technically I wouldn't need any dexterity, which I find fascinating. So yeah, that could be fun. And they specifically do list things like such as insight and insight for pistols, because as we found out last time, a pistol is dexterity and insight. So that could be fun. So I might take Lore Master just for the knowledge is but power thing, and this will just be a very intellectual, as opposed to something like Gambit, where he's very kind of suave and very very much a very charismatic character who also happens to be very very dexterous, because he was a member of the Thieves Guild and the things like that. Spoiler alert for comics that came out in like the 90s or 80s. The more I think about this, the more I think it's going to be fun. So yeah, bare minimum, I don't know if I'm going to take anything else from Lore Master, but I like things that I get MP +5. I like things that allow me to create weird builds, and this is definitely a weird build. So knowledge is power 1. All right, so you've got that. And again, we're going by level 5, because that's what we do. All right. So the other stuff. And when you perform an open check, that is an interesting thing to do. I want to just see exactly what an open check is. Okay, so open check. Oh, that's what it is. So, an open check in Fabula Ultima is basically a check that doesn't have a DC to it. So you're not trying to hit a number. It's basically the higher you roll, the better you do. So effectively, with this, whenever you perform an open check, you gain a bonus equal to the skill level on that check. So basically, anytime you're using an open check that uses insight and insight, so trying to remember something and things like that, it makes you better at doing that. So I think, yeah, I'm going to just use knowledge is power. I'm just 100% going to take the only aspect of lore masters are going to be, I want to be someone smart that uses their smarts to throw shit. I'm good with that. So, yeah, let's look at other stuff we could do weird things. If we could go Fury. Oh, so Fury is kind of like the barbarian style thing. And one of the things they have is your accuracy checks with certain weapons, that includes thrown, trigger critical success if both dice show the same number and the check's not a fumble. So, if you guys don't remember from my Discovering New Dragons, a critical success on a check results when you roll the same number that are at least 6. So as long as it's double 6s, double 7s, double 8s, double 9s, double 10s, double 11, double 12, it counts as a critical success. And just checking. And then if you roll a critical success, your check automatically is automatically successful, and you get to apply the effects of an opportunity. So what that means is as long as it's not a fumble, which is double 1s, so double 2s, double 3s, double 4s, double 5s are now not only critical successes, but they mean that you auto hit, because that's what a critical success is. So even if the roll is too low, Frenzy is really, really powerful, and it works with thrown weapons. And I kind of like the idea that they're so accurate with their intelligence. They've kind of looked over the situation. They've learned everything they can about throwing whatever it is we decide to let them throw. That they're that much better at just hitting the exact right spot. So we're definitely going to choose Fury as our second one. Free benefits is HP plus 5, and then martial melee and martial armor. So that will be, wow, Marational. That was an interesting way to spell things. M-A-R-T-I-A-L. There we go. So martial melee, martial melee, martial armor. And then we're going to take Frenzy for the one thing. Now, I only get one more class, so I'm probably going to want at least a few skills out of Fury. So, what other kind of cool things? So they have one where Indomitable Spirit means when you burn a Fabula point for whatever reason, you can either get recover hit points, recover mind points, or recover from a status effect. So that's a more defensive one. There's a provoke thing where you basically make them try to attack you. A very kind of tanky type thing. And it gives them the enraged status, which, again, if you look up here, so one of the reasons I like this character sheet is because it works so well. If you are enraged, both your dexterity and insight die go down by 1 level. So that's really useful. And this is kind of interesting. And they also have a thing called Withstand, which is basically if you guard, that's your defensive thing, you can recover hit points and increase either might or willpower as one die size higher until the end of your next turn. So that one's kind of cool. And it's built on bonds, so it's not super useful for the build that I want. We'll come back to this. Let's look for one more class that we're going to do, because I don't think we're going to be able to build this character entirely out of just Lore Master and Fury. It is an interesting combo, though, to have Lore Master and Fury. So the very intellectual person and the Berserker. This is this is effectively when people get really, really mad about a fandom that they're really into. Like, that is the character we have just created, and I'm not sure how proud I am about that. We could do some tinkering, because that one's always interesting. And that actually, with gadgets, because I could get a few different levels of gadgets, because I've got plenty of levels yet. I still have 3 levels I can go. With the gadgets, this is kind of interesting. So alchemy is very, very random as far as... So with the Tinkerer, if you guys didn't watch my last video, the Tinkerer, one of the things that you can do is you can get gadgets. And gadgets has 3 different kind of foci. You have alchemy, infusions, or magic to detect. For alchemy, the way that it works is you use some inventory points, and then you roll 2 d20s. One of the d20s will choose the target that it goes against. So it might be your allies, it might be your enemies, whatever. And then the other d20 goes for what the effect is. And the effects can be anything from suffers a set amount of damage, increases die sizes, gains resistance to something, gets a particular status effect, things like that. But it's chosen randomly, and you have a little bit of control over it, because you can always just choose to either give them, if it's a bad guy, give them 20 poison damage, or one of your allies, they recover 30 hit points. But it's interesting. It's very much kind of luck focused. Infusions just let you put some extra damage on your weapons, and then also change the damage type. And one of the superior infusions is called Vampire, which is basically you can recover some hit point from that attack, or you can recover some magic points from the attack. So basically, I could turn whatever I'm throwing, daggers, cards, whatever, I could turn them into vampiric. And the way that infusions work, it's after you hit a target. So you don't have to choose to burn the inventory points until after you've hit the target, which means you already know what your high roll is on it. So you already know what the damage is going to be before you have to choose the infusion. So if you roll particularly low, or because of what you're doing, your high roll is 0, and it's just not a big amount that you would be recovering, you don't have to suspend it. Or if you roll a crit or something and you do really, really well, then you might just tack on an infusion, because of course, why would I not tack on an infusion to that? So it's kind of like smiting style rules. And then Magitech, again, the basic one, you can just take over a robot. The advanced version, you can create a gun, which I wouldn't really be using. But the superior version, if you put 3 points into it, you can do these things called Magispheres. and effectively you can cast spells from classes that you don't have. You have to choose when you get the third version of this. You have to choose what is it? Three spells from either Elementalist, Entropist, or Spiritist, and then you can use inventory points to effectively cast them, which I think is really interesting. So I'm kind of digging the infusions though, because that could be a lot of fun to just be able to randomly like turn my card to fire or turn my card to vampire or venom. I can poison people with my card. Like lots of really fun things that you could do with this. So that's one route that could be fun. And I would probably put all three into Giga Gadgets. And there's a bunch of other things that you can do with Tinker that get cooler and cooler as you get higher level levels. I think I have sold myself. I think I'm going to go Tinker. So Tinker. Free benefits. Inventory points +2. And can initiate projects. This is the other thing that's kind of cool about the Tinker. There's an aspect, I don't think I've talked about a ton in Faubla Ultima, where you can do what's called a project. And projects are basically you inventing new things. And they have clocks that you use, and you do rolls when you have downtime and stuff like that. And depending on how well you do in the roll, you will fill more parts of the clock. And depending on how crazy the invention is, you will fill more bits on the clock. And so, like, one of the examples they have in here is effectively Magitech armor, akin to the Magitech armor of like Final Fantasy VI, where it's basically this giant robot that you kind of drive. So that's something that you can make with a project. And there's tons of other things. Basically, any kind of invention you can come up with, you talk to the GM figures out how hard that would be and if you have all the materials and everything for it. Stuff like that. So yeah, I'm liking that. But what we're going to do for this is we're going to go Gadgets 3. And we're going to go Infusion. And we're going to call it Superior Infusions, because I think that's what it's called. Right? Yeah, Superior Infusions. So I have access to all infusions, which basically means I can give elemental properties or magical properties to the things that I throw, which I really like. And all my attack rolls are made with insight, so I don't need dexterity whatsoever. So yeah, I think this is kind of a cool character. Again, I love throwing based characters. They don't have to throw cards. Like, I was a big fan of Vax'ildan from Campaign 1 of Critical Role. I like the Dagger. I have a Dagger shirt somewhere in a box somewhere. And it is one of my prized possessions, and I love it. Yeah, moving on. Let's get some equipment. That sounds like something that should be something that we do. So obviously, we are going to have for a weapon, and we can do martial melee and martial armor because the Fury gave us access to those. But otherwise, we have to use basic. So for hand 1, right now we're just going to call it a shuriken because that's what it's listed as. And again, we start off with 500. The shuriken is going to be 150, so we can knock that off to 350. And that's going to be, because of our ability, it's going to be insight plus, let's do this, insight plus insight, boom. I guess I should put ranged, insight plus insight, and then damage is I roll +4. Physical. So that's what I have right now. However, if we wanted to dual wield shuriken, yeah, we could probably do a lot of really awesome stuff with that. So I think that's what we're on. Let's look at some armor, because my last character didn't have any armor, and I'm thinking that my my dexterity is probably not going to be super, super high. So I might go with a martial armor, because non-martial armor is your dexterity die plus the maximum number your dex die can roll. So if you have like a d6 in dex, your defense is 6. Non-martial armor just increases your dex die, but it's still based on your dex die. Martial armor just gives you a flat AC. So if we were to do something like bronze plate, that gives me an 11 defense, which would be pretty difficult to be able to get without that. Basically, all of the other non-martial armor, the most they give is a +1 to dex. So I would need at least a d10 in dex to be able to get the same protection as bronze plate. It's only 200 zenny, so I have the money for it. I'm just trying to think how I would explain the character being in basically bronze plate with the character that I have in my brain. And with them being a tinkerer, I think what I would imagine them wearing is they have their devices that they throw. Again, we're using shuriken for right now. We may reflavor that, but that's the stat block we have. So they have those things that they throw, but they also basically have a suit that they wear that they've created, and it has some defenses on it because they're not a particularly agile person. I'm liking where this is going. So they basically kind of jury-rigged together this little exoskeleton that they wander around in. It's not quite the Gambit style thing I was thinking of, but I still think it could be interesting, to say the least. The one bad part about martial armor is it lowers your initiative. And bronze plate lowers it a pretty significant amount. It lowers it by 3. So that might be rough. But still, do I want to do that, though? So I might just do kind of travel garb, which saves me 100 zenny that I can use on something else. And I think I like how that character looks a little bit better. I'm not... Again, I get the idea with the Tinkerer. No, you know what? I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go with bronze plate. So we go bronze plate. And that's going to take 200 off, so I have 150 left. Or Zenit, not Zenny. Sorry, Zenny is from Capcom games. Breath of Fire, what was it? Mega Man Legends, they all used Zenny. So bronze plate is going to be defense 11, M defense, insight. Yeah, it's just insight. It doesn't add anything. And then initiative. Totally spelled that wrong. Initiative. There. No, it's initiate. Initiative. There we go. Initiative is -3. So we already know initiative modifier is going to be -3. And defense is going to be 11. We don't know our magic defense yet because we don't know our insight because we haven't done it yet. But we have that. We have 150 zenny left. I think I want them dual wielding. I like it. There's no accessories you can buy as part of it. The other thing we could do is give them a shield. again, that's not the character that I'm envisioning here. Yeah, let's go Shuriken. And then we can just copy this. Boom, and that brings us down to 0. Since we're done buying stuff, I can go ahead and roll for my additional funds that I get. So I got a 4 and a 1, a 5. So multiply that by 10. I've got 50. This is Zenit after equipment and everything like that. So yeah, that's all for that section. Let's go ahead and do the attribute as part of the same section. I don't need to make a new node for that. So for attributes, again, when you are creating your character, there's a number of different stat distributions you can do. You can do the jack of all trades, average, or specialized. The last range-based character we made, we did specialized. I think I'm going to do average for this one because I still want my insight to be a D10. And then I have 2 D8s that I can use. One of them is going to be in might because that gives me health. Another will be in willpower because that gives me magic points. And then yeah, I'm going to lowball dex. This is kind of your cleric build here, except cleric would probably do more willpower than insight, but still not horrible. And that also means that hit point is total character level plus 5 times your character's base might. So it's 40 plus 5 brings us to 45. And then I get another one here from Fury. So that brings us up to 50. And that means our crisis is 25. For magic points, again, 5 times your character's base willpower plus your character level. So 5 times 8, 40 plus 5 there brings us to 45. And then 5 there brings us up to, that was the wrong one. Let's not put that there. Let's put it here. Brings us up to 50. Because again, we get an extra 5 points from Lore Master and 5 points from character level. And then inventory points is normally 6, but we got this down here. So it brings us up to 8 inventory points that we'll be using effectively to smite people, which I am a fan of. And that means that our magic defense is going to be 10, which is not a bad magic defense. Like, this is actually a pretty beefy character for someone who's going to be focusing mostly on throwing things and not protecting people in any way, shape, or form. So kind of like that. And yeah, I think that's good. Moving on. All right. Now what we need to do, we need to create our identity and our theme and our origin. But again, for this particular thing, origin is not quite as useful because I don't actually have a world that I'm using this in. So the origin doesn't really mean anything. So, again, I normally start with identity and then go to theme. Since we're doing this backwards, let's start with a theme. I kind of like, so one of the suggested themes is ambition. And I like the idea of this tinkerer character who's very intellectually focused, but is going into a very physical, demanding field, which is adventuring and the things like that. And so by having, like, I could definitely see the reason that he learned all of his infusions and the things like that was specifically to be more useful on the battlefield. Because, again, a brainiac is not the first person you think of when you're going to be in a physical situation where you have to physically defend yourself. And the fact that he throws things as opposed to using a sword and shield or a firearm or something, I think all of those could very much fit into the idea of ambition. where he just wants to prove himself. He wants to show that he's just as good as everybody else. So yeah, I kind of like that. But that means we need to get an identity. And we could roll. We have been rolling for identities thus far. But I think because we've done everything else weird, I think we're going to I'm going to go a different route for this. So let's start with a detail. Looking for answers might be fun for this one. From another dimension could also be interesting, but I don't think that really fits with what I'm thinking. Without a homeland fits really, really well. So we go here. So without a homeland, which by the way, this is a completely legitimate way to do this as well. Like we've been rolling before because I just wanted to see what the system could do. But it does specifically say you may roll a d6 and a d20 or choose entries from this table to create your identity. And your identity doesn't have to come from the tables. It can come from any thing. So we've got without a homeland. So they don't have, which is going to make their origin kind of interesting, but they don't have a place where they feel like they belong. And so let's see what else we can use here for maybe an adjective. Reckless could be fun. Naive can be a lot of fun, or eccentric or eccentric. That could be fun. Dashing could be even more fun. Oh, okay. No, sorry. I'm gonna go. You know how I said I wasn't building Gambit? I'm not, but I really like the idea of this dashing character that is trying to prove themselves. I think creates an interesting dichotomy to kind of discover, because you have this person that feels inadequate, feels that they have to prove themselves, to have to prove that they can do what it is, and yet they are, they're dashing, they're attractive, they technically already have a place where they could have value, where they're incredibly handsome, they're kind of charismatic, which is kind of what I read out of dashing. The idea that they are a charismatic person. And if we start off with a core concept of someone famous. So basically what I'm thinking here is this person technically already has a place where they could do very, very well. Maybe they're nobility or royalty or something like that. Maybe they are in politics or something. And while they could do well in that particular field, what they really want to do is to be the person that actually goes out, discovers things, kills monsters, things like that. That's where the ambition comes from. And they've been kind of pigeonholed into this thing of, no, you're not an adventurer. You are... What do I want? Because we've got the ones that are listed here. And again, I'm just sticking to these, not because we can't do anything else, but just because it makes it easier for me right now. So we've got noble is one. We have prince or princess, which I think could be really, really fun. Or king or queen could be really, really interesting. And that would be a definite Oh, that could be really, really cool. If they were the king of a place and they have without a homeland, that would imply that they no longer have that homeland, like their country was destroyed. Um, and so I don't think I like that though, because that to me that would be a different thing than ambition. It's a cool concept. I think I would like the prince better. Um, so either prince or noble. And since we've already had one that's done prince, let's go with noble. So they're going to be a dashing noble without a homeland. And their origin is going to be, let's just say, Rich Town. Because again, we don't actually have a world that we're doing this in. If I was going to set this in, let's say, because I made mention to it before, let's say Final Fantasy VII, we're going to set it in that world. We might say that these people are from Midgard, and they lived on the upper plate, which is where effectively the nobility of Midgard is. Despite the fact that Midgard is not a kind of feudal society where you would think nobility needs to exist. It's a very modern, industrialized city. Nobility still exists. Even in our current world, you don't need a noble title to be part of the nobility, the aristocracy. You just need to be rich or well off in some way, shape, or form. Rich tends to be the most common way to do that. So yeah, if I were to have a world to set it in, I would just look for whatever city has a nobility and then be like, well, I'm from that place. Because we don't, we're just going to call it Rich Town, because that's where the rich people live. They live in Rich Town. And fun thing about Rich Town is not exclusively rich people. Because in order for a town to work, you need the lower and middle class. Because who's going to flip burgers in Rich Town? Certainly not the rich people. They would never do that. So you need poor people there too to work the menial jobs. And so I kind of like the idea of this character where he was... I like things being capitalized. So he was a noble, got disillusioned with the life of nobility and being expected to do noble type things, like depending on what kind of society we're looking at. Could be anything from learning politics and things like that, so you can interact in that world if we're talking a more kind of feudal society, or it could be going into the family business. Maybe the nobility is from them just being having a huge economic power, but he sees what this does, doesn't like it, has always been kind of a dreamer, always been kind of a black sheep of the family, where he wasn't really interested in. I think I kind of like the idea of economics. So his family has a lot of money because they own a huge economic empire. Let's say that they own a bunch of inns or something like that, or maybe the most expensive exclusive resort or something along those lines. And so he's being kind of brought up to take over the family business. He doesn't want that. He likes making things, and a lot of the things that he makes tend to be kind of sharp and aerodynamic, and so he throws them. And parents don't particularly like that. They tell him that it's far too dangerous for him to get it. It's dangerous to go alone. And they say, well, if you want to travel the world here, we can give you a manservant and some guards, and you can go out. And he's like, nah. I can go out on my own. I'll be protected. Oh, look, you can't stop anything. You're not particularly agile or anything like that. Watch this. He comes out in his cool custom-made bronze plate. Look what I made, Mom and Dad. And then they go, hey, if you go out there, this is not okay. It was cool if you were going to spend like a gap year out there, but you need to go to school, learn how to run a business. This is not going to work. And he goes, no, I'm going. It's like, you go, you're cut off. And that's where the Without a Homeland comes in, because he's been exiled and removed from all of his family's money and from kind of high society in general. And because he is a noble, he won't be accepted in the lower rungs of society either, because he used to be their kind of overlord, and people don't particularly like that. And they actually do enjoy, if you have never seen the internet before, people love laughing at people that used to be in positions of power and then lose that position of power, or people that were really wealthy and then they lose all their money. People just kind of point and go, ha ha, now you have to get a real job, and things like that. So, yeah, I think this is a cool character. Moving on to final thoughts. And, of course, we always start final thoughts with a name. So, we need a cool name for this character. And, again, because he's a noble and he's relatively charismatic and things like that, he knows that he's not going to be able to kind of go around. Oh, and that's why he wears the bronze plate, because it comes with a helmet and he can hide his face. Ooh, I like this. I think it's cool. Yeah, no, I think I've just created a superhero, guys. I've created a mass superhero. So, he's not going to use his real name, which we are going to give him a real name. His real name is going to be Tiberius, because of course I'm a Trekkie. Tiberius Kynenthal. So Tiberius Kynenthal from the prestigious Kynenthals that own lots and lots of very expensive places to sleep. But that's his secret name. What he goes by is he is called, what do we call we could call him Sharpshooter. If you don't understand that reference, go watch my last video. We could call him that. We can call him something else that's kind of trying to think of something involving throwing. Because we could just call him Bullseye if we really want to go the full like Marvel character arc here. We just call him Bullseye and go with that. But it feels uncreative. Something that I do constantly when I can't think of a word that I want is I would just go to Google and type in word synonym, and then I go to thesaurus.com and see what kind of rabbit hole I can go for. So marksman, sniper, and rifleman are synonyms according to thesaurus.com for the word sharpshooter. So I think I'm going to click on marksman, and then it'll give me more things. Deadeye! I like that. I think we have our name. His name is Tiberius Kynenthal, but he goes by Deadeye. Because out of his in his helmet, he has one glowing red eye, which, because he is a tinkerer, that is just his other people think it's his evil red eye that glows when he's about to kill him. What it actually is his targeting assistance that he created, because again, he's not very dexterous, but he's really, really smart, and so he created like a targeting assist to help him figure out. And I'm not thinking like full on like computer Iron Man style thing. I'm thinking it's mostly going to be kind of like an iron sight, or not an iron sight, but kind of like a scope style thing with gradients and things like that. If you've ever actually looked at a sniper's scope and looked through a sniper's scope, one of the things that a lot of them will have is they'll have like basically gradients, so that you can kind of adjust your aim for how far it is, because bullets are affected by gravity for some odd reason. And so I'm thinking that's what it is. And it's tinted red, which is why it's red for visibility or something. Just, again, I like the idea he has a single red eye, and that's his Deadeye. Yeah, everything about this. This is a cool character, guys. So yeah, overall, again, I think it's a cool thing. It uses insight for all of his attacks, which is cool. He can crit on anything except snake eyes, which is also cool. And then, whenever he hits, he can just go, that was actually a firebomb. Or, that was actually my vampire thing. And then, ooh, that feels better. Like, so many cool things that he could do with his gadgets. Yeah, everything about this character is cool. I am super pleased with them. I would play this character in a second. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be playing Faubla Ultima. I'm going to be running it. But that is going to be all for me today. As always, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon to turn notifications on. All those things are super important in the comments down below. What is, we've been doing this for a while. What is your favorite JRPG character? And the term JRPG is now so broad. If you go back to like Super Nintendo days, JRPG was kind of defined as like turn-based, party-based adventures where, yeah. And now it can be anything. Like Xenosaga 3 is an RPG, or is a JRPG because it's made by a Japanese company. So basically, any Japanese-based character, what is your favorite? Let me know in the comments down below. And what do you think of Deadeye? Because he's super awesome and amazing. Oh, I almost forgot. We got to give him his Faubla points. Don't forget Faubla points. So, yeah. Otherwise, again, that's going to be all for me today. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.